Some electric mountain bikes are built for speed, others focus on range, and some try to impress you with the biggest motor or the longest list of specifications. But after spending time with the LANKELEISI RX600PRO, I realized that none of those things matter if the bike simply doesn't feel good to ride. Fortunately, that's not the case here. The RX600PRO isn't trying to be the most extreme electric mountain bike on the market. Instead, it focuses on something much more important, creating a ride that feels smooth, natural, and enjoyable every single time you get on it. In this video, I'll show you what makes this bike different, take a closer look at its design and features, and most importantly, share what it's actually like to ride. So let's get started. The first thing I noticed about the RX600PRO wasn't the motor, it wasn't even the battery. It was simply how balanced the entire bike looks. Some electric bikes immediately reveal themselves as electric. Large battery packs, oversized frames, bulky proportions. The RX600PRO takes a different approach. Everything feels well integrated. The battery disappears into the frame. The frame itself has clean, modern lines, and nothing looks oversized or unnecessary. Even standing still, it gives the impression of being a serious mountain bike, rather than just another electric bicycle. Personally, I like this approach. It feels more refined, more mature, and honestly, much more expensive than you might expect. Walking around the bike, you begin noticing the smaller details. The paint finish looks excellent. The welds are clean. Cable routing is tidy. Nothing feels like it was added as an afterthought. These are the kinds of details that don't always appear on a specification sheet, but they make a big difference once you start spending time with the bike. Build quality is one of those things you appreciate more every day. Not just during the first 5 minutes, the overall proportions also deserve some attention. With its large 29-inch wheels, the bike has a confident and capable stance. It looks ready for long-distance rides, forest trails, gravel roads, and everything in between. At the same time, it never feels intimidating. Even if you've never owned an electric mountain bike before, the RX600PRO feels approachable from the very beginning. The frame is built from aluminum alloy, keeping the overall weight reasonable while providing the strength needed for both everyday riding and more demanding terrain. One thing I really appreciate is how modern the geometry feels. The riding position strikes a nice balance between comfort and control. You're not sitting completely upright like on a city bike, but you're also not forced into an aggressive racing position. Instead, it feels natural, relaxed enough for longer rides, sporty enough to give you confidence when the trail becomes more challenging. That balance is something many manufacturers try to achieve, but not all of them succeed. Here, it simply feels right. Another detail worth mentioning is the fully integrated battery. Years ago, electric bikes often looked like someone had simply attached a large battery to an ordinary bicycle frame. Today, expectations are much higher, and thankfully, the RX600PRO meets those expectations. The battery blends perfectly into the frame, creating a much cleaner and more premium appearance. It's a small design choice, but it completely changes how the bike looks. If you didn't already know this was an electric bike, you might not even notice it at first glance. Moving up to the handlebars, everything feels familiar and easy to understand. The controls are positioned exactly where you expect them to be. Nothing feels complicated. Nothing requires a long learning process. Within just a few minutes, using the different riding modes becomes completely natural. The display is bright and easy to read. It provides all the important information without overwhelming you with unnecessary data. Current speed, battery level, pedal assist mode, trip information, everything you actually need while riding is right there in front of you. One thing I particularly like is that the screen remains easy to read outdoors. Even under bright daylight, checking your speed or battery level only takes a quick glance. That's exactly how it should be. Of course, one of the biggest advantages of any electric bike is the battery, and this is another area where the RX600 Pro leaves a strong first impression. Power comes from a high-capacity 48-volt, 20-amp-hour Samsung battery that's neatly integrated into the frame. Samsung cells have built a solid reputation over the years, and it's reassuring to see them being used here. On paper, this provides enough energy for impressively long rides. Naturally, real-world range always depends on several factors: your weight, terrain, wind, temperature, how much pedal assistance you're using, even your riding style. All of these influence the final distance, but having this much battery capacity gives you something equally important: confidence. Instead of constantly watching the battery indicator, you simply enjoy the ride. That feeling becomes especially valuable on longer weekend adventures where charging opportunities aren't always nearby. Removing the battery is also straightforward. The locking mechanism feels secure, and once unlocked, the battery slides out smoothly from the frame. This makes charging much more convenient if you don't always have access to a power outlet where the bike is stored. It's another small detail that improves the overall ownership experience. Sometimes it's these practical everyday features that end up being more important than headline specifications. By this point, one thing had already become very clear to me. The RX600PRO wasn't designed around a single impressive feature. Instead, it's a collection of thoughtful decisions that work together surprisingly well. And once you actually start riding it, that's when those decisions begin making even more sense. Of course, good design is only part of the story. An electric mountain bike can look fantastic standing still. But the real question is, what happens once you actually start riding? Because that's where every component begins working together. And after spending quite a bit of time with the RX600PRO, I can honestly say this is where the bike starts to show its real character. At the heart of the RX600PRO is a 250-watt brushless motor. At first glance, that number might not sound particularly exciting, especially if you've been looking at electric bikes from other markets that advertise motors with several times more power. But numbers don't always tell the whole story. Here in Europe, a 250-watt motor is the legal standard for public roads, and what really matters is how efficiently that power is delivered. In everyday riding, the motor feels smooth, predictable, and remarkably refined. There's no sudden surge, no aggressive kick. Instead, the assistance builds naturally as you begin pedaling. It feels less like being pushed forward by a motor and more like suddenly having stronger legs. Personally, I prefer this kind of power delivery. It makes the entire riding experience feel much more controlled and much closer to riding a traditional bicycle. One thing I noticed very quickly is how quiet the motor is. Even during acceleration, it never becomes distracting. Instead of constantly reminding you that there's an electric motor helping in the background, it simply does its job without drawing attention to itself. And honestly, that's exactly what I want from an electric bike. The best technology is often the technology you barely notice. One of the biggest reasons the RX600 Pro feels so natural is its torque sensor. If you've only ridden cadence sensor bikes before, the difference is immediately noticeable. A cadence sensor simply detects that you're turning the pedals. It doesn't really know how hard you're pushing. The motor responds almost like an on and off switch. A torque sensor works differently. It constantly measures how much force you're applying to the pedals. The harder you pedal, the more assistance the motor provides. The lighter you pedal, the smoother the assistance becomes. That creates a riding experience that feels incredibly intuitive. After just a few minutes, you almost stop thinking about the electric assistance altogether. Everything simply feels connected. Your legs, the bike, and the motor all work together as one system. This is especially noticeable when climbing hills. Instead of the motor suddenly taking over, the bike responds naturally to your effort. If you want more power, you simply pedal a little harder. The response feels immediate and predictable. For me, this is one of the biggest advantages of the RX600PRO. It's not trying to replace cycling. It's making cycling feel easier while preserving the experience that makes riding enjoyable in the first place. Like most modern electric bikes, the RX600PRO offers multiple levels of pedal assistance. Switching between them is quick and straightforward. Lower levels provide just enough support to make longer rides more comfortable. Higher levels noticeably reduce the effort needed on climbs or when riding against strong headwinds. I found myself changing between assistance levels quite frequently, depending on the terrain. And that's exactly how these systems are meant to be used. Rather than leaving the bike in maximum assistance all the time, it's much more enjoyable to adjust the level depending on the situation. Doing so also helps maximize battery life over longer rides. Another area where the RX600PRO performs really well is comfort. The front suspension immediately starts working the moment the road becomes less than perfect. Small cracks, loose gravel, forest paths, uneven pavement. The fork absorbs these imperfections surprisingly well, allowing the bike to remain stable without making the ride feel disconnected from the terrain. I actually like that balance. Some suspension systems isolate the rider so much that you lose the feeling of what's happening underneath you. Here, you still receive enough feedback to stay connected with the trail while significantly reducing fatigue on longer rides. The larger 29-inch wheels also contribute to that comfortable ride. They roll over obstacles more easily than smaller wheels, helping maintain momentum while reducing the impact of rough terrain. It's one of those features you don't fully appreciate until you've spent time riding different bikes back to back. As electric bikes become more capable, braking performance becomes even more important. Thankfully, the RX600PRO is equipped with hydraulic disc brakes. Compared to mechanical systems, hydraulic brakes generally require less hand effort while providing smoother and more consistent stopping power. And that's exactly what I experienced during testing. Braking always felt progressive, easy to control, and reassuringly predictable. Whether slowing down gradually before a corner or stopping more quickly when needed, the brakes inspired confidence throughout the ride. That's exactly the kind of behavior you want on a bike designed for both commuting and off-road riding. Another thing I appreciated was how balanced the braking felt between the front and rear wheels. There was no sensation of either brake overpowering the other. Everything worked together smoothly, making speed control feel natural rather than abrupt. Of course, electric assistance is only one part of the riding experience. The mechanical drivetrain still plays an important role. Gear changes on the RX600PRO feel smooth and precise. Shifting requires very little effort, and under normal riding conditions, the drivetrain moves confidently from one gear to the next. Whether climbing steep sections or building speed on flatter roads, finding a comfortable pedaling cadence is quick and intuitive. Again, this is one of those details that quietly improves the overall experience. When every shift feels clean, you simply stop thinking about the drivetrain and focus on enjoying the ride. One situation where all these components come together is climbing. Motor, torque sensor, gearing, wheel size. Everything begins working as a single system. Instead of attacking hills with brute force, the RX600PRO encourages a more natural riding rhythm. You continue pedaling normally. The motor smoothly adds support. The gears let you maintain a comfortable cadence, and before you realize it, you've reached the top with far less effort than expected. For riders who regularly encounter hills, this alone can completely change the riding experience. By this point, I had already stopped paying attention to individual specifications. Instead, I was simply enjoying the ride. And honestly, that's probably the biggest compliment I can give any electric bike. When the technology disappears into the background, leaving only the experience itself, you know the engineers got a lot of things right. But performance isn't measured only by climbing hills or riding through forests. The real test comes after spending hours on the bike. How comfortable is it? How stable does it feel at higher speeds? And perhaps most importantly, does it still make you want to keep riding? That's exactly what we'll look at next. After looking at the specifications and the hardware, there's only one thing left to answer. What's it actually like to live with this bike? because specifications can tell you what a bike is capable of, but they can't tell you how it feels. And that's something you only discover after spending real time in the saddle. The first few minutes are always interesting whenever I test a new electric bike. You're paying attention to everything: how quickly the motor responds, how comfortable the riding position feels, how stable the steering is, how the suspension reacts. But after a while, something changes. You stop analyzing the bike, you simply start riding. That's exactly what happened with the RX600PRO. After a surprisingly short time, I completely forgot I was testing it. Instead, I found myself enjoying the ride. And honestly, that's one of the best compliments I can give. One thing that really stands out is how effortless everything feels. The steering is predictable. The bike responds naturally to your movements. Nothing feels nervous. Nothing feels unstable. Whether riding through a quiet forest trail or along an open country road, the RX600PRO inspires confidence almost immediately. It never feels like it's fighting against you. Instead, it feels like it's working with you. Comfort isn't just about having a suspension fork. It's the combination of many small things working together: the riding position, the frame geometry, the wheel size, the saddle, the grips, even the way the motor delivers its assistance. All of these contribute to how relaxed you feel after spending an hour or two on the bike. And in this area, the RX600PRO performs remarkably well. Even on longer rides, I never felt like I was constantly adjusting my position or trying to get comfortable. Everything simply felt natural. The larger wheels deserve another mention here. They don't just improve efficiency, they also make rough surfaces feel noticeably smoother. Instead of dropping into every small hole or crack in the road, the bike simply rolls over obstacles with much less effort. It's a subtle difference. But over longer distances, it becomes surprisingly noticeable. Another characteristic I appreciated was stability. Some electric bikes feel excellent at lower speeds, but become less predictable once you start moving faster. The RX600PRO doesn't suffer from that. As speed increases, the bike continues feeling planted and composed. The frame remains stable, the steering stays precise, and overall, the ride feels reassuring rather than stressful. That confidence encourages you to relax and simply enjoy the journey. This is particularly noticeable on long, straight roads. Instead of constantly making small steering corrections, you can simply settle into a comfortable rhythm and enjoy the scenery around you. Sometimes that's exactly what riding is all about. So, would I recommend the LANKELEISI RX600PRO? If you're looking for a well-built electric mountain bike with a smooth riding experience, a natural feeling torque sensor, a high-capacity Samsung battery, and the versatility to handle everything from daily commuting to weekend adventures, then yes, I think this bike deserves a place on your shortlist. It combines thoughtful engineering, modern design, and enjoyable ride quality into a package that feels refined, practical, and genuinely fun to use. And after spending real time with it, that's probably the biggest compliment I can give. It's a bike that simply makes you want to keep riding. If you enjoyed this review, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more detailed technology and product reviews. If you'd like to learn even more about the LANKELEISI RX600PRO, I've also published a full written review with additional photos and technical details on my website. You'll find the link in the video description below. As always, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next review.